Welcome. I am AntonioNeri, CEO of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and I am pleased to welcome you to our conversation on the business of sports. I am excited to speak today with 5 extraordinary leaders from the sports world with us from around the globe. We are here to talk about what is top of mind for many enterprises worldwide, how to accelerate our strategies and quickly adapt to the new normal in a post-COVID-19 world. No industry is immune from the massive impact this pandemic has had on our world and our businesses. But the sports industry has been uniquely affected by the pandemic, going from audiences of thousands of fans to a world of social distancing overnight. Please welcome our panelists, Christian Horner from Aston Martin Red Bull Racing, Daniel Levy from the Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, RickWelts from the Golden State Warriors, Susie Wolff from ROKIT Venturi Racing, and Toto Wolff from Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One. All of them joining us from their homes, factory, and stadium. During our session today, we will dive into how our panelists have responded to the pandemic and the insights that will help them transform their future. So, now let's get started. What was the first moment when you realized that the COVID-19 will have a dramatic impact on your sport? Maybe we start with Susie.
I think for us, it was quite early on because obviously we were already in the midst of our Formula E season. And I heard quite early in January that there was talk that our China round was going to be cancelled because of a virus in China.
For us, we were aware of, obviously the pandemic growing through particularly February whilst we were away testing in Barcelona. But it only really dramatically affected us when we turned up in Australia expecting to go racing.
Well, that's the day I'll never forget. I started the day in the office of San Francisco Mayor London Breed. And by the time I left her office, we had to go meet with the team. So I had to explain to them that, yes, indeed, we were going to play tomorrow night, but we're going to play in front of no audience. And I got a lot of blank stares from our crew. But, eventually Steph Curry, of course, was the one who said, hey, if that's the case, can we do my playlist? And so I could promise Steph Curry we could do his playlist. It was a crazy next many, many hours, but it was that same night that Commissioner Adam Silver had to suspend play for the balance of the NBA season, and we never played that fanless game.
Maybe for Daniel, right, a little bit different. Maybe you can tell a little bit more about what happened from the Premier League perspective, how you saw this was going to be totally different.
Well, what happened in the Premier League was our arch rivals, Arsenal, their manager, unfortunately, caught the virus. And I think that was a big shock to a number of people in the industry. All the games were cancelled in the Premier League. So we had nearly 63,000 people that were due to attend, and everything was cancelled. And from that moment onwards, there's not been a game played.
It was a situation that has never happened before. In the finance industry, we would call it the Black Swan event. In this year's situation, after Australia, we had a short break of a few days before going to Bahrain. And for us, it meant completely readjusting.
And then it all unfolded very quickly, and the organisers within Formula E were forced to make quite quick announcements saying that the calendar was going to be postponed. And then obviously everything unravelled very quickly from that point onwards.
So at Tottenham, what we arranged was we made sure that everyone had good access to computers at home, the ability to share files. But the big thing that really made a difference was video conferencing has really changed the ability for all of us to interact away from physical contact.
Now, let me shift to Rick. Rick, you have been a 50-year career here in the NBA. What is different this time compared to other crises you lived in the past?
So, Antonio, I think everything is different about this crisis. The crises we've faced before, they have a beginning and they have an end. This has a beginning, but we have no idea how it's going to end. And that creates a tremendous amount of uncertainty and anxiety in people. And we as human beings are not wired to deal well with anxiety.
I think we are in a seismic transformation process that was put upon us in the way we interact and engage with our employees and how we live our lives. I believe that we have seen many benefits of the video conferencing tools. One of them we are using now. And going forward, that will tremendously change the landscape.
I mean, obviously, fans not being able to attend a live match has an enormous difference, but I'm hoping that's only going to be short term.
We kept the communication open. We tried to be agile as an organisation to make sure that everybody had what they needed to cope in this difficult time. But I do think this has been a real challenge for all of us.
Social distancing creates its own problems. Limiting number of people around all the players obviously also has its restrictions on creating more content, but that is obviously what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Maybe, Toto, you want to add your thoughts there in terms of advice as you think about the opportunity ahead of us?
Yeah, I think so-called work-life balance is going to become more of one thing. You will be able to structure your day the way you want, rather than the old traditional style, trying to be in the office with everybody and stay late. There will be less commuting. Eventually, it will be, I think, also good for the environment. And I only see the positives.
Daniel, this question is for you. How did you help the local community and healthcare professionals?
Well, the first thing we did was we reached out to the government and said that we would offer our stadium up for testing. Then we also, the local hospital, because of the extra demand that they had on space, we offered part of our building to be utilised for a prenatal clinic. There's also been a food bank, the distribution centre set up within the stadium. So that's one of 3 in London. So, we've kept trying to utilise the space for good causes.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. I know each of you has a story. If anyone wants to add to Daniel and some of the ways you reached to the communities and the way you helped, to share with the audience here.
We contributed to developing and producing respiratory devices, so-called CPAPs. And within a few hours, we sourced a prototype, re-engineered it, and had it in a clinic for testing. It was only 72 hours until the CPAP was deployed on a real patient in a real environment. And I think this is something we can be really proud of.
We worked on, again, a ventilator project. It was great to see that, for once, competition was put to one side, and Formula One employs some of the most creative engineering minds in the world. And to see those teams come together, here at our team, we housed rival teams with engineers and volunteers working side by side, which is unheard of. It was something I think the whole industry can be very proud of. And as I say, when you have a situation like that goes way beyond, the competition that there is between teams, it brought everybody together to work as one to find a solution.
When the crisis is large and everybody stays united, you can really see the power of Formula One's innovation.
I actually think one of the potential benefits here is that it's a culture building opportunity for an organization like ours. Last week, we actually had each one of our 500 employees devote 4 hours to whatever kind of public service that they could. A lot of it had to be done virtually. It's an opportunity for us to stand up and be seen in our community. And I think within our organization, it's been a real benefit to see us all pull together to try to do something to help people through this crisis.
Yeah, and obviously technology is at the core of all of this. Maybe let's shift to the technology side then, and what role the technology will play as we think about the future. Maybe we start with you, Christian. What advice you will give to the rest of the people that are watching this session today?
Well, technology has played a crucial role. We had a slightly old school mentality prior to this pandemic where we were very conscious of protecting IP. And so the amount of remote users that we actually had was pretty limited. And then pretty much overnight, we went from 20 or 30 to 300 remote users. The really interesting thing was we did not see output or activity drop.
One says you must not leave a crisis unutilized. And I think it comes down to the fact that technology has shown us what is possible. And I believe if we are able to approach this without anxiety, but more embracing the new possibilities, the new normality, I think it will bring us a big step ahead.
One of the challenges that we gave our own organization was to take this time and do the things that we can't do in the craziness of a regular business environment. Thinking through what the future experience will be. We want to create touchless transactions at Chase Center. It's even given us an opportunity to create a new product that will allow people who own suites in different arenas to trade them between themselves, exchange them. So it's a business opportunity. It's an opportunity to improve processes. And I think when we look back on it, this will be part of the silver lining.
We've also got, for the first time, a regulatory change where our business model is going to be, in many ways, defined by the regulator, because we now have a financial set of regulations, a financial cap. Technology is going to play a pivotal role in how we choose and where we choose to spend our money.
Is there a difference between getting adjusted for the team sport versus more individual sports? What are the logistics around that and how you think about this?
When the NBA comes back to play this summer in late July, we're going to be doing it in a completely different way. We are going to create a campus on the grounds of Disney World in Orlando. That's going to require a lot of things we've never done before. It's require daily testing of everybody involved in the entire operation. You can only imagine the cleaning protocols that will have to be put in place. But I think we're going to rise to the occasion, and we're going to address the moment in a way that will allow us to crown a champion this year.
Yeah, and the same a little bit for you, Daniel, right? So the English Premier League is coming soon.
You know, what we organised was we have a group of, say, 30 players with the coaches, and it was all done remotely by Zoom. So every day for the last 6 weeks, they've been doing daily training. It's been different. We've all got our various protocols that we've introduced with the social distancing, with extremely clean buildings, daily testing. So we're going through that system when we start playing in the next couple of weeks, hopefully to finish our season over the next 6 weeks.
So how are you preparing for all of that to make sure that, obviously, make sure everything is safe, but at the same time still be competitive? Maybe we start with you, Christian, and then we go to Toto.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a huge logistical challenge, and we're going to have a lot of races following on from each other, you know, triple headers, starting in Austria at the beginning of July. So we've got, you know, the responsibility of moving our teams safely, operating within effectively a bubble. And it's going to have its challenges because we're going to try and fit, you know, between 15 and 18 races into half a year. I think Toto and I are going to have a pretty busy 6 months in the second half of 2020.
We're having a short-term logistical issue that we need to solve. The drivers will feel a little bit rusty maybe, and the same applies to our crews. We haven't done live pit stops. Here in such a short season, you have no chance to recover from a bad result. So it's going to be about reliability. It's going to be about scoring points and not maybe optimizing on that single result for the benefit of point scoring.
Certainly the discussions we're having in Formula E, it's simply about getting racing in the safest way possible. Of course, we want to finish our season, that's a priority, but we have to do it in a safe way. We have to look out for the teams, the organisation. We have to manage and balance all of these different factors.
Well, listening to Susie, I actually think the NBA has an inherent advantage compared to a lot of the other sports leagues in the United States. It's always a surprise to some of my counterparts here when they understand that I have access to every bit of financial data from all 30 teams in the NBA. And as a result, it's really in our DNA to share all information and to share best practices, because whatever works well in one place can be translated to another. So I really do think we kind of were set up to deal with a crisis like this.
Well, obviously, this pandemic has had a toll on everyone. And maybe we start your own personal experience about this, how you dealt with it, how you managed through it, and what you're looking forward to it. Maybe Susie, you can chime in here.
Absolutely. For me, it was obviously a very challenging time, but luckily for us as a family, we had nobody that was really having to cope with having the the virus. And in some ways, it was a great time for us as a family. I got to wake up next to my husband for nearly 5 months. I'm not sure how he will appreciate that part, but for me, it was...
I loved it.
But really, for me, it brought us back together as a family, and it gave us real quality time. It allowed us to reassess our family situation, of understanding that actually it's the little things and it's being together which can bring real happiness, because sometimes when you're in the cycle of going racing, you're just thinking from one race to the next, from one result to the next.
You were sharing with me offline some of the positive things, the negative things. Maybe you want to share it with the audience, Christian, about what you saw in the last couple of months, particularly in the UK.
I haven't had as much time at home since I was at school and the school summer holidays.
Being away from my team, the social interaction, we are, like you said, Antonio, not a very big team. So as much as it's been a very challenging time and for a lot of people, a very tragic time, we've also used it to actually really reassess how we want to move forwards. And what we touched on before with technology, I can do my job differently in the future and manage my work-life balance, certainly in a more positive way.
I believe that this is going to be one of the most positive outcomes of this crisis, if one can say that there are positives.
We did so much as a family, had so much quality family time. It made you appreciate the things that are important to you. In the workplace, we've been able to do pub quizzes, we've done fitness sessions online, we've kept people's motivations high, we've done town hall sessions, all those kind of things. Technology has allowed us to remain connected.
What is the one specific thing, the one experience you all are most excited to have again when we reopen? Who wants to go first?
For me, it's a really easy one. I very much miss being at a racetrack and feeling the adrenaline, getting ready for a race to start. It's something that I took for granted, the adrenaline of competition. That's something which I'm very much looking forward to getting back to. Personally,
I'm looking forward to seeing Toto again. I haven't seen him for 3 months, only on the screen, so we can't hug or anything like that. But I'm looking forward to seeing him again and hopefully giving him a harder time this year.
No, absolutely. I mean, we are fierce competitors, but there is a lot of respect also for each other's performance, and we've been in the sport for a long time, and you start to realize that you miss the interaction. I personally actually look forward to the racing itself, pure racing, and this is the reason why I love the sport so much. Forget all the rest around it. Let's just race.
What are the things I think the Formula One as an entity should be thinking about it as we go back and touch this many people? What messages do you think we should be sending?
I think it has a responsibility, to presenting itself in a responsible manner. At the end of the day, sport is entertainment, whether it's Formula One, basketball, or football. It's a form of entertainment, and it will be perceived as a form of returning to normality.
Yeah. Maybe, Susie, I think if you think about the sports from your vantage point, a little bit different perspective, what do you think what is the one thing the sport has that you think will be beneficial as we think about this new world going forward?
I think in the end, of course, as sports, we have the responsibility to get back racing in a safe way. But as much as I'm in Formula E, I love to watch Formula One racing. And as a fan of Formula One, it's what Christian touched upon. It's that sense of normality coming back. It's that sense of 2:00 on a Sunday, we're going to sit down and watch the Formula One race. And we've been starved of so much content. And in the end, a passion for sport can really unite people. And it cuts through any barriers of politics. And it's simply a pure sport. And may the best man win.
How do you think that fan and player experience will change with the usage of technology, with the inclusion of technology? Maybe we start with you, Toto.
Well, I think, again, as we discussed before, we need to see the opportunities with the inclusion of technology. Yesterday, we held a press conference with 30 journalists. Before that would have been done on the racetrack itself. Now, for the first few races in Europe, none of these journalists will be able to access the paddock. I believe that some of the newsrooms and some of the media outlets are going to realize actually having a remote access with a structured press call can be as efficient as being actually in the place.
What we're doing when we launch our games in a couple of weeks' time is the fans, when they watch the games on television, they'll be able to press a button to decide whether they want to hear the artificial sound of the fans. As far as the players are concerned, what they will see, some of the stadiums in the UK have very big screens. And obviously, you've been to our stadium, we have 4 very large screens. And on those screens, we're going to be pumping fans onto the screens via Zoom. So, you will actually have the interaction with fans. Obviously, it won't be quite the same. It will be a different experience, but there will be some connectivity.
Rick, we talked about the NBA engagement, the NBA fan experience with social media. The same with you, Daniel. Maybe Rick.
Well, to build off what Daniel was saying, I've already talked about a couple of things we're doing: touchless transactions, mobile ticketing. But I also think this has given us permission to rethink how we present our sport. And that's going to show up in television. When people start to watch the games that are taking place for the balance of this NBA season, you're going to see a lot of experimentation, different camera angles, different sound opportunities to capture. And I think some of them will be successful. I'm sure some of them will be terrible failures. But I do think it will inform us on how we can better cover the sport and present the sport to people in the future.
One of the things that we feel in Formula One, replicating that fan experience trackside is going to be very, very difficult. And what we see is that the fans are very hungry for information. They want more and more information. And so I think, for us, we've used this period to things like, invest in our website and create content. And I think it's giving more behind the scenes content. We need, as teams, to work hard and give more to the fans and give them that insight, give them that information that they crave.
I think technology is going to be at the core of those business model disruptions. Any thoughts about how you think about this business model evolution?
Maybe I'll start. I think, Antonio, definitely our business model is impacted because we generate revenue through gate fees, TV, and sponsorship as the main pillars of revenue generation. And a large chunk of that is being harmed.
The world is changing significantly, and technology will become a crucial element in how we use simulation, how we use AI in terms of our business tools to become more efficient. Now we've got to think very, very hard. Where do we commit and spend our resource?
Rick?
Christian is right. I think people are so starved for sports content right now that when we do return to the field, or in our case, the court, we're going to see some very significant audience growth. And I think if we're successful in our technology innovations, that we can sustain some of that growth of audience going forward.
Obviously, we've had no physical stores for people to buy merchandise. And so what that has naturally driven is people to our online store. And I think now that more people have got used to spending money on the online store and spending more, that we now need to put greater resource into our online store, and the physical stores will become less important.
What do you think will be your long-term priorities that you will have to really focus now more than ever before?
Where technology comes into play, normally you would have the right to go on a fast lap with a junior driver, or you would be able to do a meet and greet with Lewis Hamilton in the paddock. And we will be replacing those rights with digital rights. We just need to think out of the box.
We are a young championship. We go racing in a different way. We're in city centres. It's all electric technology. It's the future of the automotive industry. We need to be quick on our feet. We need to make sure that we're making the right decisions now for the mid to long-term success of the championship. We need to attract more viewers. We need to make sure that on the broadcasting side, we're growing and making sure that Formula E becomes relevant for those people that have been starved of sport and want to see action again.
I think the other aspect that very focused on, and probably affects everybody on this call, is how are we going to get the spectators back? And what is going to be the mechanism? So I think we're thinking along the lines that it will only be a digital ticket, and that has to be aligned somehow to some form of health passport. So you've had a test, it enables the ticket, which enables the access control to work within the stadium. So I think technology is going to play a very big part in the coming months.
I believe long term, we're going to grow these pillars again to the levels where they were before or even more, plus the new digital and technology properties and assets that we are developing right now.
Thank you. Well, this has been an amazing conversation, and obviously we can go forever, but I want to ask the last final question. What are the learnings you think are applicable to other industries besides, being the sports?
I think, as we have started the conversation, a crisis is always a moment where you need to consolidate and limit the impact as much as possible, and then try to anticipate what the learnings can be and utilize the opportunities.
Yeah, I think, look, in life, there's always going to be challenges, and this has been an enormous challenge for the whole globe. And you're always learning, and I think it's how you adapt to change, how you embrace change. I mean, certainly within our organization, we have a culture of embracing change.
I think for me, the key learning from this whole episode, and one that I'm going to take forward, is efficiency. In Formula E, with energy management, efficiency has always been a big word, but even efficiency in my organisation. We are a small organisation, so we're forced to be efficient, but this has really allowed us to look more closely at our organisation and how we work and how we can be much more efficient. Do we need all the people at the racetrack? Can some sit in a remote room using technology to not have to travel to all the races? And will we be more productive from doing that?
I would say out of every crisis, something good will come out of it. And I think I would agree with what Susie said. When you look at your businesses and you say, what can we change to make it more efficient? And I think human beings are incredibly resilient. And it's upon us as leaders to really instill upon all our staff to say, actually, it's not all negative. Let's be positive. We're going to come out of this stronger. It's incredibly sad for all the people that have died during this pandemic, and it's terrible. But, we have to get through it, and we will get through it.
So maybe other panelists, in the end, it comes down to what I call the sense of hope and feeling of recovery, because ultimately we can learn from the tough situation, but ultimately get better as we go along.
I think the thing I'm most optimistic about is actually reinforcing the value of sports in our society. I fell in love with sports, not because of the game that was being played as much as what I saw happening in the audience and what sports teams and organizations can mean to communities in bringing people who have nothing else in common together because of their common passion for a sport. And I think we will be part of the healing. We will be part of that because we will reinforce what sports means in our society.
Think that there will be a lot that we take out of it that we're able to utilize in the future, and I think better times are ahead. Sport will return, the world will continue, and hopefully we can take a lot of lessons out of this last few months and apply them in a wise and creative manner.
There's one thing we always say in our team, that's the worst days. The days where we lose are the days we learn the most. And I think this needs to be the philosophy coming out of this COVID crisis.
That wraps up our Business of Sports panel. Christian, Rick, Daniel, Toto, and Susie. This was an incredible, impactful conversation. The stories you have shared today are not about standing alone during adversity. They are about how you found motivation as businesses, as teams, as organizations to navigate adversity together. You stood united. That says a lot about each of you, but it also says a lot about the power of sports, where individual accomplishment is celebrated, but teamwork is essential. To each of our panelists, thank you. And a special thank you to all who are watching. Until we meet again face to face, remember, we are all in this together.